Have you ever wondered if someone was monitoring you, like nefarious tech companies, corrupt federal agencies, or hostile foreign countries? Newsflash, they are. The deep state, big tech, and China are tracking your every move and using it against you up until now. You've been powerless to stop it. However, Titanium Secure has cracked the code with post-quantum encryption, and we control the entire ecosystem, end to end. Join Titanium Secure today and help us vanquish the enemies of free speech.
We are joined on the Daily Signal today by the founder and chief information officer for Titanium Secure. We're going to have a fascinating conversation about cybersecurity and encryption and all sorts of things that are well beyond my scope of knowledge. But I have Dr. John Reese here with me. He is the founder and CEO, and Michael Avari, who is the chief information officer. Gentlemen, thanks for being with the Daily Signal.
Oh, thanks for having us, Rob.
You know, I always like to begin these interviews by hearing a little bit about your story. And John, in particular, I'll start with you because you probably never imagined you'd be in this line of work coming from dentistry. So tell us about how you ended up creating this company.
Okay, well, it truly is that God has a sense of humor because my tech skills come with a chisel and a piece of slate. You know, I would make a very good cameo on a Flintstones episode. But back in 2019, you know, I saw a need for conservatives to have their own platform where they could do several different things. And part of those was to secure communication and to secure data. And out of that was born the Titanium Secure Communications platform. So through a whole different set of circumstances that we saw happening in that landscape, you know, when Parler was shut down by AWS, when people were getting their communications hacked, their information stolen, we saw a need and we decided to fill it.
Excellent. And Michael, how about you? John describes you as the brains, the technology wizard. How did you end up partnering with John here?
Well, I met John through a mutual friend in Dallas who introduced us, actually Carrie Eldred, if I can mention his name, of the Eldred family, who Ken Eldred was one of the founders of Ariba. And I'm friends with Carrie and Ken, and they introduced me to John. I have a background in technology that they knew about. I was a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, for one of their companies, their startups, a social media company. And from there, the introduction led to John bringing me on as the Chief Information Officer for Titanium Secure.
Excellent, excellent. So let's go back to that period before we fast forward to today, because there's obviously a lot happening in the world when it comes to information technology. In that period of, let's say, after Donald Trump's election, we saw a lot of changes. So, for instance, there were fingers pointed at Facebook at the time and blaming them, you know, their own employees and others on the left, saying that, you know, they needed to restrict some of the speech of conservatives because it was their ability to share information and the president's ability to communicate directly with the American people that prompted him to win this election in 2016. And then you go forward all the way until 2021 after January 6th, and they removed him from the platform. But in that interim period, you had situations like the Parler deplatforming and other conservatives, including those of us at the Daily Signal who saw, you know, shadow bans and other things happening to our own institutions. So what was it? Was there a particular incident, John, that motivated you, or that was that spark that you decided that you wanted to create a secure platform?
Well, it actually, Titanium Secure is actually a subsidiary of the original company we started called oneforall.us. And that was designed to be an alternative to the Democratic fundraising machine ActBlue. It was an aggregator of information on issues, organizations, and candidates where we would identify the 70% of Americans who aren't crazy. You know, they're not the 15% that are crazy hard left liberals, 15% that are crazy hard right radicals that you can't change anybody's mind on the issues. Educate that 70% on the real issues, you know, in a complete, unfiltered, and uncensored and unbiased way. Let them make up their own minds, because we know that if people are faced with the facts, like the Heritage Foundation does a great job of giving people actual facts on the issue, and they're typically going to fall down on the conservative side of the line if they know the real facts, unless they're, again, crazy. and then to mobilize them to act. So we donate to candidates, get involved in an organization, run for office yourself, and so through a chain of events, that never came to full fruition because we were just fighting an uphill monster, and we knew we weren't going to have an effect in the 2020 election. So we knew that people were going to get their data stolen. We knew that they're going to get hacked. We knew they were going to get censored. So we decided to start a secure communication platform where we could be free of big tech involvement, censorship, also a US-based platform, so that we knew where our servers were, we knew had access to them, and we knew that we could go touch them if we needed to, versus some appearance or presence in this nebulous cloud that nobody knows where it is, right? So we wanted that type of control because we knew that they were going to be needed. And so that's kind of where it started. And then it came to fruition later that year when I think it was December or January of 2019 or 2020, when Parler was completely deplatformed by AWS. So we said, well, that's even more of a reason. So we started pushing forward. And here we are today where we've got a secure communications platform on servers that we know where they are, controlled by people who we know, based in the U.S.
John, I had the opportunity to interview the head of Parler, the new Parler at CPAC,
Nice.
just recently, and it's amazing, how long it's taken that company to recover, and I think they're on solid footing now. But yeah, a situation like that certainly can ruin a business that at the time was thriving and starting to make great inroads. Yeah. It raises this question in my mind. We've heard Mark Zuckerberg and other big tech executives come out and do a 180 in some sense, try to cozy up to President Trump. Should the American people trust them?
Well, again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Only God knows a man's heart, right? But they're making changes, and some people will say whatever they need to say to get whatever they want at the moment. I don't know. I know what they did in the past. I know that there's a lot of things going on that I don't agree with on their platform. Now, we're not a social media platform like Facebook is, or even Parler. We're strictly a secure communication platform. But by the same token, we started out with what I'll call pure motives. We're here to not sell, share, or otherwise advertise off of people's data. We want to promote the security, and we want people to be able to communicate freely in a confidential manner where they know that even if it's you and your family, you don't want somebody listening on your conversation. Well, how much more important is that for a political organization, a business, a medical office, a law office? Those things are very important. And then you see what happened with, we'll probably get into it later, but even something simple like, it's not simple, it's big, the 23andMe bankruptcy.
Yes.
Where all the data you sent in. I mean, I knew that was crazy from the start. I would never send my DNA to some random person, that have it in a data bank. But now all that information is out there. And people just don't understand how important it is to maintain the security of not only your communications, but your data.
Well, Michael, let's bring you in here because I'd like to hear your thoughts on the 23andMe situation, but also it seems like a daily occurrence where we're hearing China is trying to gain access to systems and our personal data. If they're not successful, they're at least making attempts to do so. Of course, recently in the news, we've had what they're calling Signalgate and that whole saga. Why is it important for the American people to carefully guard their data and use a platform that is secure?
Well, taking the Mark Zuckerberg model, of course, I don't want to cast any aspersions as to his motives, but it is clear from his marketing strategy that he's collecting data to sell data. And even if you use his communications platform, WhatsApp, which is owned by Meta, the parent company, he's still, even though the messages are secure and encrypted, he's still collecting data on the users. So that's one motive to use a Titanium Secure as a communications. But turning to the Chinese, your point about that, they are constantly trying to penetrate our infrastructure, from water pumps to oil rigs to telecoms. So most recently, it was discovered that they infiltrated 8 or 9 telecoms. And as such, they now have access to whatever data those telecoms collect, whether it is who's talking to who, or in some cases, perhaps even content we don't know. So the FBI and others are now encouraging everybody to use an encrypted app. They don't know yet about Titanium Secure because we believe that we are the most secure encryption available because it's resistant to quantum computing, which is the next generation computing.
Okay, so I want to get to quantum computing, but just to pick up on something, we hear so much in the legacy media about why we should be scared of Elon Musk and what he's doing at Doge and the access to the data. Why is it that we don't know more about what the Chinese are doing? I mean, you've just enlightened me about this. I mean, it seems like that is a much more significant threat than anybody in our own government.
It's a huge risk. It's a huge risk, particularly because they're into the infrastructure. This is a well-known thing. We need defenses against infrastructure. Now, we're not positioning Titanium Secure as a solution to that, but stating the overall problem that the Chinese will not give up trying to spy and steal information from Americans and from American companies and from people who communicate who want privacy. What Titanium Secure does is shield that communications from anybody, from the Chinese, from big tech, from anybody. And the communications is point to point and not maintained on any server that we maintain. All we're doing is acting as a switching station for that communications.
Okay, so let's talk about quantum computing. But John, first, if you wouldn't mind, can you just describe what the product is, and for those viewers or listeners who would like to use it, what is the method in which they would go about doing so?
So the product is called Titanium Secure Communications. It's a subscription-only communication platform. Again, not social media. It's not a toy. It's for people who really want to communicate. So you can do a video conference on your desktop. You can share screens like you can on the other video conferencing platforms. You can make a telephone call. You can do a chat. You can send documents. You can share videos and photos, just like you can on the other types of messaging and communication platforms there are. Because of our delivery protocol for our messaging, typically, well, first off, you're in a secure envelope. So we vet our users by their cell phone data. We can tell if it's an actual person, if it's a fake phone, if it's a burner phone, all those sort of things that can be nefarious. We also vet them because they have to give us a credit card that we can validate as a real credit card, a real human, not like some of these other prepaid type things that you could use. And then we can only communicate with another Titanium user. So we don't open up our envelope to anybody. If you open the window out, you can also open it in. We don't want anybody coming through so it's a secure closed envelope from end to end, point to point, like Michael said.
And that's contrasted with an iMessage or a Signal or these other platforms where anybody can just add anybody.
Well, it's contrasted with the primary example would be with Telegram.
Correct.
We've
Okay.
heard a lot about Telegram, which is kind of a hybrid social media platform plus a communications platform. But it's been known that Telegram has been hacked, data has been leaked, and untoward folks use it to do unsavory things.
Bad things, yeah.
So John said we're not a social media platform, so you can't go and find someone and friend them. You have to be invited by a certified user of the platform.
Yeah. And the other thing that makes us different from those is that we are subscription only. I know what it costs to run and build something like this. I don't know how you can do it for free. So they're not doing it for free. We mentioned WhatsApp recently. It's a known fact that in 2014, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg's organization, bought WhatsApp for $19 billion. That was 11 years ago. And they had zero revenues at the time. But like Michael said, what they do have is thousands of data points on pretty much almost everybody on the planet who uses that app. They're worldwide. So that's a huge income producer for them. The other differentiator for us is that we don't store any data, we don't sell any data, we don't share any data on anybody. So we're not advertising either. So we are making our money on subscriptions, but the subscription is very, very affordable for people. It's I think for an individual user, something like $6, and if you have a large group, it can be down as low as $2 per user per month. We have a variety of plans that are based on intelligent, simple pricing, no smoke and mirrors. We're not trying to dupe anybody. We just want people to have a good quality product at a fair price that's easy to understand.
Yeah. No, thank you for building it.
Yeah. So and again, because what I started to say about our delivery protocol, we actually can get messages delivered in sometimes where cell service can't. Because we have we're riding down the same highway. We use obviously the internet for our desktop applications, and anytime we're using Wi-Fi, and also the cell channels. But it would be like the cell traffic, or even something like Zoom or Teams, another video conferencing platform, is riding down this information superhighway in a crowded city bus. We're on that same highway, but we're in the express lane in a chauffeured limousine. So we can get places where other people can't. We cannot guarantee that you'll get service where others don't, but we've seen it happen time and again where people are in spots where like, how did you call me? I don't usually get cell service here. So that's kind of where we are. So
Excellent.
So it's a good thing.
Sounds like a great benefit. So Michael, you brought up quantum computing. Titanium Secure is the only messaging app that is quantum resistant encryption. So describe for us what that means.
So quantum computing is the next generation of computing. So in classical computing, you have limitations as to how fast a computer can go. We're driving speed constantly, of course, but there is a physical limitation. And that limitation is, very briefly, because the computer recognizes either a 1 or a 0.
Yes.
With quantum computing, they're recognizing the different polarity or spin, not to get too technical, of the electron itself. And with that, by harnessing that ability to look at things other than 1 or 0, you can build very, very fast computers. So what does this mean? Encryption can be broken merely by the speed at which you run the algorithm to break it. So it's a race against time. You build encryption that's too complex for current algorithms on current computers to break. And so you have encryption. With quantum computing, the speed now matches that encryption. So the quantum computing, when it comes, and the horizon is probably 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 or 5 by best estimates, they can break the current encryption. So we need new encryption methodologies. And so the National Institute for Standards and Technology has authorized, perhaps authorized is not the right word, but has sanctioned certain algorithms to be used for encryption and digital signatures. We're using the one for encryption, so it's NIST. It's a NIST algorithm, and it then makes the communications between two people, whether it's messaging, whether it's voice, whether it's video, resistant to even quantum computing. So if bad people, the Chinese, others, intercept that message, they will not be able to see the content of that message.
Yeah. So let me jump in here and ask in my non-technical brain for Michael to clarify that just a little bit. So the way the algorithm works is it basically is like you want to guess somebody's phone number, and you start putting in digits, and you change one digit at a time in all these different combinations until you find the right phone number, correct?
Well, it kind of works that way.
Yeah.
It kind of works that way, but it's done on a much larger scale.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because it's just streams of digits.
Sure.
Yeah. But so the quantum algorithm, runs through those numbers so much faster, and so it can get to the endpoint quicker. On typical encryption protocols, it's going to get there, and it's going to get there quickly. On our protocol, we can't say it won't get there, but it's going to take them some time.
It'll be much harder. And who would have access to these tools to break the encryption? Are we talking about foreign adversaries or hackers in the United States? Who are the people you're trying to block from gaining access?
Foreign adversaries.
Okay.
The Chinese have proven that they are advancing in quantum computing. Now, the Americans are as well. Google, IBM, others. Microsoft recently announced that they discovered a new phase of matter in their quest for quantum computing. The science is moving quickly, but the main threat is coming from overseas, from the Chinese. The Chinese desperately want, you've heard about industrial espionage, you've heard about other things that the Chinese want to do. They want to control and threaten our infrastructure. This is a method of battle. It'll be the future method of battle, in fact. So it's mainly foreign adversaries.
Okay, and why do the Chinese want so much access to this information? What are their ill intentions once they have this data?
Well, that's probably a better question for a fellow like Michael Pillsbury, is it? Who wrote the book about that, is really an expert on that. But certainly, if you can control means and lines of production, if you can control power, if you can control water, you can basically control a country. You can you can leverage that country. So you've heard about the study of threats to the power grid using nuclear power, or EMP, electronic magnetic pulse. They wouldn't even have to do that if they could control the communications that could shut down a power plant or a grid or other means of survival for American citizens. What titanium does is secure that communications. That's not the overall solution to that problem, but it certainly addresses one layer of that problem, mainly communications.
Yes.
Yeah,
between two people.
But even on the personal level, my son's a real estate attorney, and there are billions of dollars a year that are being stolen because bad actors are intercepting the wire transfer information. So you're going to close on a house tomorrow. You get a AI deepfake phone call from somebody that sounds like it's a real person that says, "Mr. Bluey, we see you got a closing tomorrow. I'm from such and such bank. Just want to make sure you've got the numbers right on your thing. Can you read me what you've got?" "Oh, no, you got one digit wrong." And now you send that information to the wrong bank. And it's gone forever in a wire transfer, 9 times out of 10. Or if you've got again, on a legal matter, you want to keep that confidential, your medical information, all these different things. People say, "Well, I'm not saying anything that anybody needs." Well, yeah, you are. You're doing a lot of things that people would love to get. I mean, even if you've only got $100 in the bank, somebody can take that money from you and you never get it back. If you've got a transaction, if you've got, let's say you're applying for life insurance and somebody gets a hold of your medical information and changes it, anything can happen. So we have to be aware of these things. And you've even heard reports, this is kind of it's related, but it's not exactly on topic, but even like the Nest thermometers and the Ring doorbells, I've heard where the Nest thermometer has actually, or thermostat, I say, has actually reported a 911 call because they heard people arguing, and then they heard a child crying, and they thought it was somebody abusing a child, which is a good thing if you're abusing a child, but it's not a good thing if your kid just had a bad night, and you got the police showing up at your door.
Right.
So we're being monitored in more ways than with the Internet of Things. And again, this is just one layer that is a peace of mind for people to know that at least my communications, and if I'm sharing a document with somebody, that it's encrypted, and if anybody gets it in the middle of the stream, they're not going to be able to unencrypt it. And if somebody hacks into our servers, they're not going to be able to find your data.
That's right. That's right. I mean, and I'm glad you brought up the fact. I mean, because we've heard it over and over again that Americans have willingly put these devices in their homes and constantly listening.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and also, right now, I mean, we're hearing so much about the Chinese and the EVs and how, other countries outside of China are embracing, and you just have to wonder, like, what kind of technology has China put into some of these vehicles? John, let me ask you this. So you've talked about, individual users can benefit from Titanium Secure.
Right.
How do you envision businesses or corporations using it? Maybe from either a B2B standpoint or business to consumer standpoint, or just amongst colleagues to make sure that internal documents are not leaked or hacked in ways.
Yeah, so we have individual subscription plans where an individual can sign up for his own account and then communicate with other individual subscribers, or you can have a small group plan or a family plan, and then you can also have large corporation plans, okay? And of course, as the number of users goes up, the price per user per month goes down. So an organization like the Heritage Foundation, who does, who has a lot of good, sensitive conversations with a lot of very high-level people, well, you would like those conversations to be secure. And when you're using some of the other channels out there, the encryption may or may not be as strong as it needs to be. And the information gathering and sharing is maybe not as tight as it should be. So our terms of service definitely prevent those things from happening. But again, back to a law office. Let's use a real estate attorney. In South Carolina, where I'm from, you have to have a lawyer handle your real estate closing transactions. Some states don't require that. So all the document transfers that occur between that attorney and his real estate agent and that attorney and the client can happen in this secure envelope. You're sending your driver's license, you're sending your social security number, you're sending bank account information, sometimes bank statements even. All these things can happen in that secure envelope. And the lawyer can, for lack of a better word, buy a 45-day temporary subscription for his client to communicate with him in a completely secure envelope the entire time this transaction is going on. And then at the end of that subscription, or in that time transaction is done, that subscription expires and that lawyer can reuse it for somebody else. So you don't have to keep adding on new subscriptions. You just keep recycling the ones that are in your organization. The permanent employees have a permanent subscription. So all his staff members can communicate back and forth and with each other, and then even with other clients, while that client still has an active subscription. So it's a pretty unique way of adding.
It sounds like it, yeah. Hearing you describe that, I can't help but think of how outdated some of our government systems are. We've heard Elon Musk talk about this with regard to the federal government, but I'm even thinking local governments, and whether it be the DC government here where we are today or others, probably a lot of vulnerabilities, wouldn't you say, Michael, in terms of they just haven't kept up to date with the security and the technology, and that maybe leaving an open door to the Chinese or some other hostile actor.
Yeah, for sure. So if someone's looking at this and deciding, do I use titanium or do I use another means? There's nothing really wrong with using a free service like WhatsApp. There's many people overseas who use it. So if you're traveling overseas, you have contacts overseas, and if you want to just have a friendly conversation, nothing wrong with a free service. Signal is another example. But if you're exchanging sensitive data in an enterprise or any organization, you certainly do not want to take a chance using a free service. You want a secure service that is point-to-point, end-to-end encrypted, and with the highest level of encryption possible, so that it's future-proof against these very rapid computers that are on the horizon. Yeah. In fact, I think the federal government has encouraged agencies and departments to start putting plans in place for quantum encryption in their own departments and their own agencies. So here we have a solution that's readily off the shelf, that's ready to go for the communications part of that.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
But I'm gonna have a corollary to what Michael said, because it doesn't have to be sensitive information. Let's just say you're sending photographs of your children. Mm-hmm. They can do all kinds of nefarious things with those photographs. Or what is it when they catfish somebody? I don't know that term, but basically you don't want anything like your photographs or anything like that out in the public sphere, because so many bad things can be done with it, even if it's just to do facial recognition on you. or to create an AI deep fake, and send that photograph or a meme or whatever it may be with your image on it that you didn't authorize, and it might be doing something bad. It could be a pornographic image, or it could be that you're holding a noose around somebody's head, whatever the case may be. You don't want that information out there. So I think, that, free apps are okay, but I would very, very cautiously share anything that you don't want somebody else to have.
Yeah, no, it's a important warning, John, and thank you for reminding our viewers and listeners that they do need to be more mindful with all of their personal information. Let's wrap on this. Can you share how anybody who would like to learn more can find out about Titanium Secure? Where should they go, and how do they sign up to be a subscriber?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Titanium Secure again works on any platform, on any operating system: Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and Linux. On any device, tablet, desktop, or phone, Android or Apple, like I said. You go to www.titaniumsecure.io, and then you can look on the website. You can subscribe. You can download the app, and if you're interested, we could even give a promo code where they could get a discount for being a Daily Signal listener, and they can get a discount on that subscription.
Or through the Apple App Store.
Oh yeah, they go through the Apple App Store also under Titanium Secure Messaging. So the official name of the company is Titanium Secure Communications, but on the App Store, on Apple only, is Titanium Secure Messaging. You can download your Windows, and your Mac, and your Android directly off our website without having to go through the App Store.
Well, we'll be sure to include links in the description and the show notes, so it make it easy for all those who are watching and listening to check it out. Michael, John, thank you so much for spending time with the Daily Signals today.
We enjoyed it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Subscribe to get the news the legacy media won't tell you and only the Daily Signal can bring to you.